What? Suddenly we're up for nothing. We're not getting any money, real money for it. And she was always so happy taking work instead of us. And I looked at it, the salaries of God. And my God, did you not need friends? And now of course, just while I was coming back, they had half of that. They had sold that. That's, it's too bad. If you would sell it nowadays, you would get 3 times as much. But they had to be selling part of it. You're part of your grandfather's father's property. It was the meadow going up, and you see the barn in the way in the back. I hope you get a picture of that your grandfather was building years ago. And they had this piece of property turning all the way up here. Can you walk, maybe take a picture of this part too?
Yes.
And we called this part of the village the Twiete. The Twiete means it was a narrow dirt road with a lot of bushes around it. You felt so safe, and it was such a nice part of the village to walk and take a walk and be peaceful. Now it's a paved road, and all the romantic is gone. It makes me sad to be around here, because it makes me sad to tell Jim this has been a piece of property of our family, and our grandfather sold many years ago. But still, I myself grew up here, and I know how Uncle John felt growing up here and living here. And it's, for us, it's also kind of sad to know this is all gone. But still, I am kind of happy to be able to show it to Jim, so we have a little bit of an idea how his grandfather grew up, and a little bit of an idea what village life was like, with the cows and the smell of it and the flies of it in the summer and the sun warming you, and it was just, we didn't have much money, but we had a lot of country and a lot of peace and a lot of feeling for the nature. And I suppose his grandfather had the same. And now that I'm just walking past it, looking back at it, I'm kind of glad I grew up this way, and I'm kind of glad to tell Jim his grandfather grew up that way too. I guess that. You see, you take a little bit of the house I grew up in. So at least if I ever saw the tape later years, I recognized that this is my favorite view of it too. And all these houses being built later, it seems like they don't belong there. Naturally, they fixed it up. It wasn't looking like that years ago. From the other side, this is the main road again. All right, now we've come to a part of our lives, my uncle and my life, that has good and bad memories. The school. This is the school now. When we went there, the uncle and I, we both went to the same school. It had the entrance in the middle, where there is a window now, and it was just, looking at it now, it's so small. And I remember it being so huge and so big, and we'd be playing here. And we had 8 school classes in this building, and they were divided up to the 4th grade in one room, from the 4th to the 8th in the next room. I suppose the uncle had the same kind of arrangement when he went. And whatever pictures I remember seeing of his school days, they'd all be sitting and standing in front of that front door, and they did the same to me. We had to be standing and sitting in front, and we always got enough notice to put on our best dress and be dressed just our best for this photograph. It was just a big event and kind of nice, because we didn't have to learn anything that day. It was just about the fun of taking the picture. And then another thing I'm going to show Jim, when we had to go, the outhouse was out of the front door, across the playing ground. Then in the back of there, it was an outhouse without flushing. This would be something for the kids nowadays. You can imagine how smelly, how nice it was. All these kids had been going that morning. Well, still in all, we felt it was very natural. But looking at it now, it's kind of bringing back memories I put away, and I never even thought about it for the rest of my life. Now all of a sudden I see it, and I think it's impossible to have children go out there. So in the meantime, we had meetings and gatherings, former students, and we all say the same thing. We had times that we've been poor, and now we've had to go out into the world and make a living and find our own ways, but we all had something in common, have this school, and learn a little bit, maybe not much, but not enough. It was enough to survive for the rest of our lives in this little bit of a school. When you look at it, it seems like it's something impossible, you know. But still, we learned enough to survive. And there are good memories and there are bad memories, like I say. But I'm kind of glad Jim has a chance to be seeing this and to be recording it, to get. They won't recognize there's a bakery. The playing grounds for all these classes, to think of it, 8 classes on these small grounds, and we'll be climbing the fence. They had a little bit of a higher fence, be hanging there, because there's the bakery, and they be baking their cake and their rolls and their bread, and you can imagine the smell. It was just gorgeous just to be smelling it, because I can't remember them ever giving us a roll, or ever bothering to think that we'd be hungry. And we have been hungry at times, but it didn't really bother us. It's just that I remember now that it must have been a little bit cruel of these people never to think of it, that we'd be playing here, and it was wartime, and most of us didn't have much to eat. And these kids just be hanging there looking into the place where they'll be baking the gorgeous bread and these rolls, and the smell of it itself was enough for us. And whenever Michael and she had it all burnt in the back. And we didn't say a word. That poor woman was standing there, was coming up, and we were so mean, you know. Nobody said a word. Going into Dersau. Welcome, Dersau. It's been a road I've loved when I was a child, riding with the bike, visiting Aunt Erna in Stockse. And then once I saw the sign Dersau, oh, I was happy. My Dersau. Dersau was better than any other village I can ever remember, because Stockse was nice, had a lake too, but Dersau was so much, much better. And I remember when the uncle was remembering things, it was like Dersau, being in Dersau, you just visited other villages, but Dersau was home. Now we're starting. These buildings have been, they didn't exist when we were children. They built them after the war, and now to my left, to my right, I would say the ditch hole, where they dump all the garbage of the village. And then we have the farmhouse, the first farmhouse to my right. And then we're passing Karen's geese. She loved them. They've been talking with each other a couple of hours before. So we see a little bit of the lake to our right already. To our left, this is the biggest farmer. He was a rich farmer for our, remembering him being the big farmer, we had a lot of respect when we met, and we were always greeting him. And then we have a farm that had burned down, and they rebuilt it, and we're now to my left, we're passing the post office. Post office was most important. It brought all the packages that were coming from America, and that was a special. And then we're passing, coming up to the bakery, and right after the bakery there's the school, and the school was the one place that I didn't like to go, I'll tell you that much. Now we're coming up, this is the center of Dersau, all the pride of Dersau, with the trees in the circle, and the meeting place for everybody, the general grocery store, the barber, and then to my right, Appels. Appels was the biggest restaurant, now the oldest house of Dersau. They couldn't tear it down if they wanted to. Good, thank God for that. We're coming up, they have built a bank. Bank hasn't been there when I was growing up. Then to my right, I see the Drewry, town's Drewry. It's now it's apartments in there. They don't use that kind of. I remember going there with my milk can and getting my milk from there. And to my left, it's the house of Uncle Hannes' friend. No, that was my right. Now it's the farmhouse, my stepmother's cousin. And now we're coming up to the mill. It's a restaurant they called the Mill. And I remember my uncle John getting the idea of building the mill for his home, and being very annoyed that so many people had built a mill after him. So we're just about, now we have the memorial, and we're just about starting to leave Dersau. Since this was the main street, Dersau is a small town, and this is used to be a general store. Now it's just, they rent a lot of places. They rent for tourists, brings a lot of money into this village, with this gorgeous lake and with all kinds of nice old buildings and new buildings that have been built. Like these buildings are all new. They didn't exist when I grew up. They certainly didn't exist when the uncle grew up. And we had a farmhouse over to my right. It's gone. There are all new houses now. Now there's a farmhouse coming up. They always had an unusual style of living. We always thought they were a little bit weird, but they had sort of had their own way, and nowadays I think they were very happy people. So now it's nice big houses they have built after the war, after I've even left. And we're passing another farm. There have been children that I went to school with. I don't even see them nowadays anymore. They're all grown. And we're getting to the end of the village, and there's forest ahead. I can see the sign. There is a hill coming up, and I remember being on the bike a lot. I hated this, going up this hill. I always had to sort of wanted to make it, not to be climbing off the bike, but I didn't make it. I just about made it to the curb we're reaching now, and that's when I had to give up and be walking. And I hated to walk. I wasn't the type to like that. Now we're leaving Dersau, bye-bye Dersau, going to Ascheberg, the next village. It's as much patience as you have with the